Hello everybody and welcome. I'm Eustace Pharmer, and in today's video what I wanted to do was see if I can't maybe dispel some current thinking or bring to light some knowledge that maybe some people don't have. You may hear things that you already know about 2017, but you might find things that you didn't know. So I've watched other YouTubers videos that have been doing the dev blog updates, and I look down through the comment section and I see people saying things like, oh, this game is nothing but a 2015 converted over to 17 and there's not a lot of new features, this, that, and the other thing. And I have to beg to differ. I disagree with that to a certain extent. Yes, there are some things that were carried over, and that's because they're things that we really all know and love and would love to see in Farming Simulator 17 that we had in 15, like our add-on packs, our JCB and our gold add-on stuff. That's all coming over as what it looks like to be base game equipment. So if you could not afford to purchase these items when you were playing 15, you're going to be able to enjoy them as base game items in 2017, along with a lot of other new items. So that's fantastic. So I was in the Giants software forum and I came across a thread from a Giant Software employee. His name is Mark, M-A-R-C, and he posted this back on September 23rd, 2016. And I still think it was quite an extensive explanation of things, with notes to the modders as well. So I thought I would read this out. And since I know it can be a little bit dry, I pulled the pictures that he had on that thread too, and I thought I'd use them and treat you to a little slideshow to kind of keep you busy. But like I said, do listen in and pay attention as well, because you might get some things out of this that you didn't know previously. So let me stop jibber-jabbering and I'll fire up the slideshow and we'll get started. Okay, so Mark says, we've compiled some of the known features for FS17 here for reference. First heading is new crops, sunflowers and soybeans. Sunflowers can be harvested with regular maize headers or with the new sunflower headers, the benefit being faster working speeds. Heading number 2, cover crop, oilseed radish. Cultivate them when grown for an additional 30% yield on a field. All crops can be cultivated in this way to get the yield benefit unless the crop is dead. This, however, usually does not make any sense since the other crops are worth more when sold. So use the cheap oilseed radish instead. So that's great. New fertilizing system. Fertilize 3 times for a 30% increase each time during a crop's growth cycle. So you're going to do like you do in soil mod. You're going to fertilize at different stages of growth. Fields that are not fertilized will yield less crops than FS15. Let's see, fertilizing once nearly gets you to the FS15 base yield. Fertilizing 2 times will put the yield slightly above FS15 base. Fertilizing a field 3 times will yield about the same as FS15 did when you only had to fertilize once. So between each fertilization, either the soil must be worked, i.e. cultivated, plowed, sown, etc., or the plants have to grow at least 1 stage before you can fertilize again. Actually, it would be better not to call it fertilizing system, rather something like yield improvement system. It is quite an abstraction. Yields can be improved by any of the following. Fertilize solid, spray, liquid, slurry, manure, cultivating cover crop, weeding, etc., as long as the plants are still small. And there's a modder's note here. Any of these actions adds an increase of 1 to the yield bits with a maximum of 3. So mods equally can use this function in other ways, for example as a packer, so like a soil compaction roller or something, I would assume, and that would add an increase of +1. A mulcher, again, +1, or whatever tool could sensibly be used to improve the yield, and it does not necessarily need to be called a fertilizer. Plowing is now required. After 3 harvests, the field need to be plowed or they will start to yield 10% less. And there's a mod note on this again. After each harvest, a counter is reduced by 1. So after 3 times, it's set back to 0 and the yield will decrease by 10%. Plowing will set back the meter to 3, to the max of 3. Using this feature, mods can implement other fun stuff. For example, let's say each wheel of the tractor will compact the ground. So a mod reduces the counter by -1 at any point you drive on the acre. After you have driven over the exact same spot 3 times, the soil would be so compacted that it requires to be plowed again. Or the opposite. You can build a mod that does not plow but loosens the soil. Instead of setting the bits back to the maximum of 3, it could just gradually decrease the soil compaction by +1. That's pretty cool. Grass. There is no meadows. There are only fields on which grass grows. That is to say, grass also now has a terrain detail layer, and therefore its yield can be increased like mentioned above. Additionally, it means that sowing grass no longer destroys field borders. So modding info on this one. In the Giants editor, you can still plant grass without the terrain detail layer. It will be mowable but not fertilizable. I don't even know if that's a word, but we'll go with it. So because there is no layer beneath to take the fertilizer, grass around fields and near roads should still be done this way. However, meadows should be created using the terrain detail layer and the matching field borders. Since grass no longer deletes the terrain detail layer, what do I do when I just plowed a really ugly field or made a mistake when combining fields? I can no longer sow grass in a straight line to clean it up? That is what the Lizard R5000 roller is for. Its only function is to delete the foliage and detail layers. Where this one is used, nothing will be left except the terrain, the original terrain. So he warns, use with care, don't buy it on multiplayer, and your fields are safe from grassing. So yeah, if you have a public multiplayer server, you might have some malcontents get a hold of that roller and delete all of your terrain detail in there. So keep that out of the mix. Okay, heading for helpers. They can now see and evade static objects, for example, trees, hedges, buildings, etc. When encountering dynamic objects, they will stop and wait for you to move the tools out of their way. But they still send you a note about being blocked. That's fantastic. They have various turning strategies, including reversing, which they will apply according to their tool and the objects around them. So they're a lot smarter now. They can now also mow, tedder, and windrow, as well as use trailing harvesters, attach choppers, and the likes. However, the grass stuff they can only do on the above mentioned terrain detail layer type grass. So they're only going to be able to do the automatic function, in your planted grass fields. You're not going to use them to mow borders around your fields. So on hard mode, which is optionally set, they'll use diesel, seeds, fertilizer, and so forth. Additionally, they can take slurry and manure directly from the pits. If you happen to have too much to transport, they'll just automatically grab it from the depots, and you can set that in the options. So I don't think you're going to physically see them drive there and load the stuff into their unit. I think, instead of like before mysteriously drawing it from a universal source in the ether, they can draw from your current supply. So if you don't have any, then you're going to be in a pickle, because you're going to have to buy some for them. That's what it looks like to me. So let's see. Physical material integration. Tip anything. Unlike previously, where any material, crops, grass, straw, manure, etc., only could exist within a container, the harvester's grain tank, a shovel, a trailer, the silos, etc., materials are now always physically existent in the world until they are used up, fertilized, spread, manure, and so on, or sold. So that's pretty cool. Therefore, if you tip a trailer or shovel, the material will fall to the ground and stay there. There are no longer windrows in their abstract fruit type form. There now is simply straw or grass or hay, and it is simply dropped to the ground when harvesting, mowing, and so on. Important to say is that the system is completely dynamic on a level of half a meter accuracy, and the material cannot flow through collisions. This feature opens up so many possibilities, it's crazy. And he's got a big old smiley face next to that. So a modder's note on this one. Material can only be placed on real terrain meshes, which will not allow this, or rather, if the mesh does not contain the blocker bit, the material will simply fall through it onto the real terrain beneath. Extendable silos and placeables to customize your farm. The crop's silos have a limited storage capacity of 100,000 per crop type, and this can be expanded by placing extensions near the silos. Sugar beets, potatoes, wood chips, etc. can now be stored anywhere using the physical material integration. So no longer a need for placeable heaps. You can dump them anywhere that is convenient for you. That's pretty awesome. There are various shelters and some functional buildings like the workshop which can be placed. The workshop, for instance, allows you to reconfigure your machinery without having to pay the mechanic, and to do it in a more convenient location than at the shop. So that's pretty cool. You don't have to go to the dealer to get your truck or tractor repaired. So the economy. Crop prices fluctuate much stronger and differently at the various selling stations, so that no longer the same crop will be delivered to the same station all the time on average. Like in FS15, on average, all activities have an on-par economic value. For instance, the price of wheat is much lower than canola. However, canola also yields a lot less grain per hectare than wheat. Silage was nerfed. He has a laugh symbol. I assume a leprechaun played tricks on the price factor in Farming Simulator 15. Cough. Silage is now back on par with the other activities in the terms of their economic value. Of course, activities that involve many manual steps are usually priced higher to reward you for your work accordingly. So silage is still going to be worth more, but it's not going to be your miracle savior. You're not going to become a multi-millionaire in 20 minutes anymore. So animals are very expensive. This must be to keep up evenly with the economic value with the fields that grow in 3 days. Likewise, maintenance and renting costs are very high to balance against the incredibly fast-growing crops. Great demands still exist, however they are far less strong in order to stop people from hoarding crops. It is now much more sensible to check the prices for crops daily and to sell at a good opportunity rather than wait for a demand, which may at the time be a good deal, but may still be lower than the super price the bakery is paying right now. The prices overview has been overhauled and is much more clear now that the crops are in the columns and the selling points on the rows than the wrong way around like before. Generally, there are a lot more info tabs for costs and prices to benefit the clever farmer that does not want to run his farm into debt. Slurry and manure can now be sold at the biogas plant. Fantastic. So, the mission system. All fields not owned by the player are owned and worked by other farmers behind the scenes for performance reasons, in parentheses. However, this makes the map a lot more alive because there are now all types of crops growing everywhere instead of the barren wasteland that was FS15 fields. When you interact with the fields icon, you can talk to the field's owner and he will usually offer you a mission/job on that field according to the type of crop and growth stage that it is in. For instance, fertilizing crops or harvesting sunflowers. To do the job, he will need to give you the tools. You don't bring your own. This is incredible fun in the early game when you have no money and can't afford all the cool things you get to drive while doing the missions. So it's a really neat way to test drive some stuff to see if you even want to buy it. And of course, there's quite some money to be made in this way to offset your running costs. So let's see, animals. You already own chickens, and they can neither be bought or sold. So whatever you have, that's what you got. So don't run them over. Um, so pigs, sheep, and cows can be bought and transported. They will reproduce if fed well. Pigs will reproduce the fastest as their only economic value is being sold to the livestock dealer. Uh, Productivity and reproduction rates. If animals have no water, their productivity will be 0. 10% is reached with straw bedding, except for the sheep, and another 10% increase with a clean trough area. And sounds to me like they're talking about mucking out the stable of manure. That's what I gather there. The remaining 80% are generated through proper feeding. So for the sheep, simply needs grass or hay to achieve a 100% productivity. For the pigs, however, you're going to need a 50% base food, which they have as corn, 25% grain, which is wheat or barley, 20% protein, which is canola or sunflowers or soybeans, and a 5% root crop, potatoes or sugar beets. The feed does not need to be mixed, just drop it in the trough. The pigs are not picky. If you don't really need 100% productivity, simply go for maize and wheat or barley to reach a nice 75%. To max out at 100%, you have to feed them everything, or you buy expensive pig food in bags which already contain the perfect balance of all 4 types. So for the cows, you're going to need a 50% base food of hay or silage, 30% power food, which is contained partially in total mixed ration, TMR, 20% fresh grass. You can now feed cows on hay and fresh grass alone and still go up to 70% productivity. By the way, hay stays hay in the loading wagons now. Good news. To max out at 100%, you have to feed them TMR, which is total mixed ration, and that counts for the base food and power food at the same time, which will go up to 80%. And then on top of that, add some fresh grass to reach the full 100% productivity. Let's see. Play as a farmer or a farmeress. The bale trailer and others have dynamic tension belts that can be used to strap down the bales, wood pallets, or big bags for safer transport. Small physical objects can be picked up, carried, dropped, or thrown, initially intended to allow the player to pick up small wood leftovers which are hard to grab with the front loader and throw them in the chipper. This was extended to allow to pick up any physical objects that are small and light enough to just play around with. That's going to open up a few possibilities and play some handball or kickball or something like that. And how fantastic is it that you don't have to fool around trying to pick up with your log grabber those little pointy spindles at the end of your pine trees anymore. That's, to me alone, is going to save a lot of my hair. So internet radio and streaming or other music can be played in the vehicle's radio as well. You can drive trains, and one selling point is exclusive to train delivery. Corn can now be chopped in the last still green growth stage as well. So that's pretty cool because it seems like that's in real life when most of them do the silaging. So head and eye tracking support is in the game. So if you have a Track IR headset, you're in luck. Beacon lights can be set to use real lights if your PC is powerful enough. The yellow-black stripe trigger markings can be removed if you already know where stuff is and don't need them. So that's pretty cool. The mini-map can be expanded to large, set to normal, GPS size, or completely hidden. Now that's what we had in the game before, but listen to this. This is where you're going to see a big improvement. In the map menu, you can zoom and scroll on the map. Set beacon markers for a better orientation and teleport directly to places without the need to park your vehicle and tab there. And what some people may not realize is when you're hitting that tab button and you're going through all your vehicles, that's actually taxing your frame rate. And that alone can cause your game to crash on lower end PCs. So this is a cool innovation here. The vehicle camera's last position and orientation is saved per vehicle. Thank goodness for that. Well, how frustrating is it when you go to get back in your vehicle and your head is still pointing backwards? AI traffic works in multiplayer or can be turned off in the settings. So that's pretty cool as well. So now states at the end, this list is not complete, just jotting down some things that I could quickly think of. Cheers. Thank you very much, Mark. This is fantastic. So, as we know, things have also progressed since this article, but I did think, especially when you're talking about the map and all that, I think that that's the things you really need to look at. So you're going to find some things that were similar and maybe bumped up in quality a bit, but you're also going to find some market improvements in this game. So I hope this helps you, and I hope you found something that you didn't know before. Please feel free, of course, to leave your comments and suggestions and tell me what you think. And I hope you enjoyed the video. So I hope you're having a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever in the world that you call home. And until we meet again, please take good care of yourself, and bye-bye for now.